Hey everyone, today I am going to be talking to Thane and Margaret. They have a unique business or coaching program. They also are entrepreneurs, but we're more going to talk about what they're teaching people how to do, which is kind of where you see them, they're a couple and they teach people or couples how to do business well. But let's get into the history first. Thane and Margaret, could you guys give your previous history, what you guys used to do to what you're doing now?
Yeah, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, I am a retired teacher and I taught for about 25 years, mainly elementary school, and loved it. Absolutely loved teaching. It was my favorite job ever. It wasn't even a job to me. I really did love it. But as the years progressed and as I neared my end of my 25, I really saw a lot of changes in the school with the kids, with allowing kids to be more disruptive and interrupt the learning of other kids, and just became more and more frustrating. And so even though I love my job and I really, really didn't want to leave teaching, I kind of got pushed out by the way it was being run lately and how kids were taking over the school. So that kind of initiated my desire to want to get out of teaching and find something new.
Yeah. And I came from, 20 plus years in executive management for large and startup technology companies. So running sales, marketing, and support teams around that customer service. And I had about 7 years ago, I had run across conscious capitalism and impact businesses and became very interested in that. And that just fed my delusion with corporate America and what was going on. And Thane and I had been talking a lot. I was traveling at my last position. I was in Australia most of the time. So we were like, you know what, we want to do something together that has an impact on the world. And so we created the Entrepairneur Agency. And we work with other couplepreneurs that want to come out of their corporate environments and want to build businesses that really have an impact on the world. So that's kind of our history and where we are right now.
Got you. All right. Awesome. Well, I guess it's questions. I mean, it's the same question, but probably answered differently by both of you. I know, Thane, you said, way the students and all that stuff kind of eventually led you to this path.
Right.
I guess what was a trigger point and shifting incident or something that happened that like, this is it, I'm done kind of deal? And I'll ask the same question, Margaret, how you kind of shifted with the same conscious capitalism, what you saw, corporate culture, which is, anyway, I can share my own, but we won't do that. I'll let you guys share. So Thane, I guess you go. You want to go first?
Sure. I think you're asking like what really made me want to leave teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I had my hardest student ever was my last year, and just really challenging. And it was frustrating because he was taking all of my time and energy away from my class. And I was actually spending time with this kid outside of the classroom, hour to 2 hours a day, and having to try to manage my class in and out of the room with him and try to teach. And I was getting frustrated and just didn't feel like this was fair to the students. And even though I voiced my opinion and I had PTA parents in my classroom and everything else, it just felt like nothing was being done or changed, and just kind of went with the flow. And so that was like my trigger point. Like, it's not okay for other kids to suffer because of one student. And that was happening. I was seeing it everywhere, not just my classroom. I'd walk down the hall and I'd see every class that had kids just like mine that were disrupting and kind of getting their way. And so that was my trigger point. I want to change. And I think the biggest thing for me was that I've always been afraid of change and being set in my ways. And so I had to learn to adapt and just say, you know what, because I think as teachers or someone in my position in a career, 25 years, you're like, I can't change. I'm in this career. My retirement's going to be set and all these things. And another trigger point for me was I saw my retirement, and I saw that what I was going to bring home for a monthly paycheck and my overall retirement wasn't great either. So I said, like, I'm not afraid to make a change because I want to make more money than that.
Gotcha. Awesome. Oh, Margaret, how about you then?
Yeah, I think my trigger point came over kind of about a 9-month period. In my last company, I was actually hired to do all the things that I had kind of built my career around and wanted to do. I was hired to build out a sales, marketing, and customer support team in North America from a company that was based in Australia. In the technology area, really leading edge product, and be on the executive team, which was, always things that I loved being involved in boards and things like that. But one of the biggest things they brought me in to do was to transition the company into a certified B Corp, which we don't need to go into, but that is about, doing business in ethical ways and being very transparent about it. There were some things, and we don't need to talk about what those are, but very blatant opposites of those business practices that happened on day one.
Wow.
And it was I was just mind blowing to me. And I was like, this is really what I've been seeing in corporate America. And I can't be a part of this. So I stayed there for as long as I could, about a year, trying to make as much change as I possibly could. And I just wasn't going to. And so that's when we came together and we said, we can actually do really good things in the world and work with people that want to do that, bring our experiences in building certified B Corps and impact businesses, and coming from an environment where building up the young in our America to do good in the world. And we can bring those together and help that from our little piece of the world. And so that's what we're excited about doing.
Awesome. Well, so the conversation you guys had seems like, it came from essentially your corporate experience about having an impact, changes. So what was that for you, Thane? Like from your teaching career, right? You haven't been exposed to the corporate end of it. So what was that conversation like? What kind of made, I guess, I don't know, like what she said made sense to you, and how you got enrolled in the program, I guess.
It was a little overwhelming, and I'm definitely not a corporate person and never really been involved with that. I did a little bit of business at the front end before teaching, but it was a little scary. But initially I was like, well, I just want to bring what I'm strong in, which was in teaching, was storytelling and humor and that kind of thing. And so I wanted to bring that part of it in, which I will do in coaching as well. But my other strength is math and finances and the kind of the backbone of our business. So I'm doing the back end stuff, which is my strength. So Margaret can focus on the corporate side and what that kind of thing, and then I can focus on the back end and organization, which is my strength.
Yeah, that's one big important part of working together as a couple. And who we work with are couples. Now, they don't need to be married. They could just be life partners. They could be best friends. They could be family. I have a conversation later today with a brother and a sister. But when you have that personal relationship, finding that kind of yin and yang where you're not going to cross over, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, how to build the business based on those things is a lot of what we've gone through. And we've used outside, counsel for some of that also. Now we're bringing all of that together to work with other couples to be able to, because you need to have that solid foundation before you launch in, because we work from home. So we spend 24/7 with each other. Well, maybe not 20%, but a lot of time with each other. Right. And a lot of people have experienced that with COVID now, working from home more and things like that. So being in proximity. But when you have a business and a personal life, there's a lot of nuance there. And, setting up those boundaries, talking through those things, understanding, what you're going to do when is really important. So that's kind of how this has grown and manifested.
Awesome. Well, I'll have I guess maybe a different question for each of you. So let's get into the coaching part, right? Let's get into a specific example without names. Obviously, you don't want to get into them. So how do you, from your point of view, how do you do, what do you input? Like, let's say a couple came to you for coaching. as far how to work together, and they're having some difficulties, whatever the case is, or they're just starting out, whatever the case is. Existing example that you worked with, and Thane, kind of like share how you get involved in the same thing and how you both together kind of work together. If you can, I guess, briefly explain an example, give viewers a view of how you guys work.
Yeah. Probably the best place to start is, what maybe with that brother and sister I was just talking about. So we have an online strategic planning form that we'll send everybody through. And it's a great place for people to sit back and think about things they might not have thought about. And so it takes about 45 minutes to go through this form. And from that, we build like a base plan, right? And then that allows them to be able to understand, okay, here's some things that we need help with. Here's where we want to go next. We make recommendations in that. And then, so we have not only the business strategy piece, which we can, take that plan and put it into a full-fledged business plan where they could just take it themselves and implement. But then we have the coaching side. So on the business strategy coaching side, that's mainly me. And then we do have, we're developing right now an online community where we're going to do small group coaching for couples. And we feel that the power in that is not only about the individual couples and them, but it's about what's happening in other relationships too. And we're not going to get too big because, we want 3 or 4 couples in that small group. We want them to build a cohort and a relationship, and we'll have a 6-week plan on that. But there's a lot of strength in that community, and then that will go on beyond that. We'll create a community so that they will continue to stay together, and we'll add to that community as they go through. So it's kind of this individual coaching program with those cohorts, and then there's continued community support moving forward.
I guess, Thane, going back to the question where each of you bring that individual strengths to that coaching program, would you, guys get into it a little bit just to share a sample, essentially?
Yeah, well, that coaching program is being developed right now. So we haven't put anybody in that right now. We're bringing from experience. And then Thane's got a lot of coaching experience, and that it'll be good for us to have the two dynamics where he comes from, and I'll let him explain more about interfacing with parents and issues and getting engagement and things like that, where I come from coaching sales and marketing people in not only like sales, normal sales relationship kind of things, but also skill set development. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your.
Yeah, I mean, being an educator, you're pretty much on stage every day. And I had to be everything: a mentor, a coach, an entertainer, a teacher, everything. And not just with the kids, but as Margaret said, with the parents and with whoever else, my cohorts and everybody else. And so you're always coaching, whether you're coaching the students, coaching other teachers on how to do lesson plans, or coaching parents on how, maybe even how to teach the kids the way that we're teaching it in class and that kind of stuff. So I'm bringing that with me as far as I know how to coach and handle other people and how to train. And I will delve into that as we get into it later on. Right now, I'm more in the back end, but I will be involved in coaching. And I've already had a friend reach out and for advice on coaching about being with a couple and how to manage it. And like he was just asking, how do you manage when your wife is so successful? Is that overwhelming to you and that kind of thing? And I'm like, not at all. It's just we're a team, and her things and I'm trying my things.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I guess, yeah. So when is I think I was going to ask the question, how can you help people? But I think you already went through that, how you can help the people. But is there a timeline on when are we going to start the group coaching soon? You said soon, but I don't know if you give the time.
We already have 2 couples that are interested. So right now I'm working on the framework. So we've got a framework, you've got to have KPIs or key performance indicators so that we have this kind of path that we're moving along and everybody knows expectations and things like that. I would say we'll start that early spring. Because what we want to do is get these couples kind of moving in their business development experience so that they've got some shared experience between the couples and we can start on those kind of conversations. So I would say probably early spring.
Early spring. Okay. I mean, that's pretty close. So yeah. Okay.
It is, yeah. April, May.
April, May.
So
Okay.
April, May. Yeah. March
Okay.
kind of is early spring, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
April, May.
Yeah, it depends. Like for me in Dallas, it's almost spring. So
Yeah.
so yeah, exactly. So if you're in the north, I lived in Dallas, Detroit, which was spring wasn't until almost June. So all right. So I guess I'll have one question before I ask my last three questions is when you started working together, what is it you guys have encountered that was one of the biggest issues?
I think it was learning to appreciate each other's space, because we both can be working hard and you forget and you just like, I need an answer right now and I'm going to come and ask my wife and she's like, I'm in the middle of something and I really need to focus. And so it was learning to, we have our own offices. So for one, we need the space anyway, but that just helps us manage our time and our space, because it's not fair to interrupt each other all the time. And so that was hard for me, because I need an answer right now. Mine's just as important as what you're doing. So to me, and so we had to learn to do that.
Awesome. How about you, Margaret, for you?
Yeah, so I am a very big strategic thinker, and most of my career I've had teams that are the doers. And so, in a startup, you've got to, and I've worked in startups. I was employee number 10 of a company that went to over 500 million in a couple of years. So that was, that's very comparable experience. But sitting here and just having the two of us in the beginning, and then we had a small team outside of that, a couple other people helping us. It was trying to figure out where Thane, what we could do together and what I could just hand off to him that was in alignment with his strengths. And, there might've been things, there were things that I thought, okay, great. Well, you can just do this. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. Or I don't, that's not where my strengths are. And, so having those conversations around that and then going, okay, well, let's go find somebody who can help us with that. But being open to, especially in a startup with people in the very beginning, where everybody's comfortable, where your time is spent most efficiently and effectively, and then having the conversation about, okay, let's go get somebody else to help us with this, because that's going to get us to where we want to go. But being on the same page there, it takes a lot of communication and conversation.
But I think we had a strong relationship before we started this. And I think if you don't, it could be challenging for people that, especially, for a married couple or something, if you don't have a strong foundation already, which we did. And so it's not like we're like, oh my gosh, I've got to learn how to work with my wife every day, and this is so frustrating. It's not like that at all.
Okay. Awesome. Great answer. All right. We'll get into the last three questions. Obviously those three, you guys might have different answers to it. So the first one is, what's the best book you guys have read that you would recommend to others? Professional, personal, it doesn't matter, I guess. So yeah.
Me to start.
What's your favorite?
The one I most recently was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I love that book, and it made me come out of my safety zone and my comfort zone, and made me think. There's so many quotes in there, but he really talks about that if you want to move to a higher level of life, you have to make a lot of changes within yourself and and change your old ways and all these things. And that you really do. And especially for me as a teacher, I was set and regimented on my little routines, and I have to make so many different changes in my lifestyle to do this new business, but I have accepted it. And that book has helped me accept that change is good, and it's a good thing.
Awesome. What you,
I think And you can see I'm a voracious book reader, and that's just a tiny area or sampling of the books that I read on a regular basis. But one of mine it's called For the Culture by Marcus Collins. And it's a new book. And it's about, and it goes everywhere from startups, just 2 people, to very large companies. And I think it's a really great book for people who are starting new companies and want to be able to go fast and far. And we focus a little bit on impact hacking, and that is being able to put those strategies in place to allow people to do that. It starts with culture. And it starts with the culture here, right? Because that is reflected as you grow with partners, with clients, with employees. It's so that was a really good one for me, and something a little bit out of the norm from the startup mindset.
No, that's a great question. Being involved in a startup, although I was kind of playing a role of CTO, one of the big things emphasized was culture, because for me, when I build teams, that's important. If you have the right culture, people will stick with it. Awesome. Great. And then, all right, the second question I have is, what inspires you to get up and do what you do every day?
For me, we've talked about it before we started our business, but building a legacy for our daughter. I want to become really successful and have a strong business and something that either my daughter could take over or financially can help her down the road as well. And so for me, it's legacy. She's our only child, and I just want her to be secure.
Yeah. And for me, very much in alignment with that, is also helping other people not have that frustration throughout their career about what they're doing is not being positively impactful on the world. There's so many people out there right now that just go to work every day because they need a paycheck. And that's important. But you can create companies that are financially successful, but do amazing things in the world. And we need so much more of that. And that's what gets me up out of bed every day, is being able to go find those people and work alongside them to do that.
Awesome. Well, the last question is, what's the one tip that you guys can share, personal, professional, that has helped you tremendously, that can help others?
Well, for me, it's what I said earlier. It's don't be afraid of change. And I think I saw so many cohorts or coworkers, and I can't leave my job, but I'm stuck here, and this is my path, and this is where I'm going to go, no matter what my education is and how smart I am and everything else. And so I think for me, it's don't be afraid to make that change, and it's scary, but it's worth it.
Gotcha. And
mine is definitely follow your heart. Every time I've looked back over my long career, and whenever I talk to my daughter and her friends and things like that, I say, follow your heart. Because if I would have followed my heart, I followed my mind most of the time through my career. Like I had this plan, really from like 18. And I got to that place where I was like, okay, this is what I had said I wanted to do. I'm here. Oh my gosh, I am not doing good in the world. And if I would have followed my heart, I would have gotten here faster and had a bigger impact.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Thane and Margaret, for joining. And I'll be sharing their both info, either if you're looking to be in an impact business, or you're looking to see how you can work with your partner, especially someone very close, like Margaret was sharing. Could be brother and wife, brother and sister, or whatever, the best friends, right? Even them, when you know them really well, it's tough to work together because you know them too well. So anyway, you can reach out, and then obviously their group coaching also potentially. I don't know how many slots they will have open, but either way, I'll be sharing their info, and reach out to them if you guys want to have a conversation and see if you guys are fit for there. So again, Thane and Margaret, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much. It was great to spend time with you.